Hey everyone, welcome to the Empowerment Project. I'm Dr. Shar.
And I'm Andrea Bosco. And today we are so excited to have this amazing couple with us. From the moment we met them, it was instant, like we knew each other for many, many lifetimes. And I think we both agree that it's like we want time to stand still when we're together because we just enjoy talking and sharing our passions together. So Luana Arlotto and Marcus Mariani, welcome and thank you for being here. I just want to introduce you because everyone needs to know how amazing you all are. So we're starting with Luana. So currently Luana is a guidance counselor, but she's been in education for almost 25 years, teaching in both elementary school and now in high school. She is the current mental health and wellness staff lead at her school. She runs the Mental Health and Wellness Council. She's a firm believer in the importance of teaching the whole child, which we know and love that. And equally a firm believer that the shoe makes the outfit. And we love that about you too. She is the co-founder of Lumo Magic, offering whole person wellness coaching. Although they're no longer in operation, the fundamentals that were fostered there are put into her daily interactions with her students and her colleagues alike, which is definitely why we connected so well. Fulfillment for her comes from preparing meals and going for hikes with her family, laughing with her kids, date nights with her husband, who we will get to, writing and talking and laughing for hours on end with her friends and her siblings. Marcos, currently also a high school student, high school teacher in phys ed. Also been in education for many years, close to 20 years. Very involved in school community as an active coach of various teams, including but not limited to the senior boys soccer team, wrestling, and track and field. He's an advocate for health and nutrition with a particular focus on the importance of mental health and active lifestyles. And he really lives by these principles. He's also a green thumb with a particular and educated understanding of the importance of environmental awareness and responsibilities. He's a soccer fanatic, Messi's #1 fan. Fulfillment comes to him with spending time with his family, playing with his kids, especially outdoors, joking with his friends, and date nights with his wife. He's also a social butterfly and is known by pretty much all the students and staff, and I can attest to that. They are both proud parents of two beautiful boys, which they really fulfill their life purposes. They are married and see each other as equals and lifelong partners, and hashtag couple goals. So this is why we just needed to speak with you guys, because you're just incredible in every sense of the word, right? So thanks for being here, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Saying those kind things. I don't know about the hashtag, but we'll take it.
So we're going to start off first and foremost because this is a platform where we talk about teens, but also because education is a huge part of the teen world and being in school and learning, we want to know why you guys got into education. And I'm going to start with you, Luana, and then Marcos, you can add in your experience into getting into this space.
Thank you for the intro and for having us, first and foremost. As far as education, there are many reasons, but the most important one, and I'm not lying, you can go back to my high school yearbook when I wrote my life goal was to change the life of at least one child. And I think that we have a special role as teachers. It's not just a career, it is a vocation. And I really think that the desire to help, to serve, it's innate in me. I'm an oldest child, and it's just like, I think it comes with the territory, but also and a natural nurture. But the idea of really helping someone see themselves in a positive light, and also the best version of themselves. I think we have the opportunity to do that as educators. So it was, for me, it's always been much more than curriculum. I love this different subjects I've taught, but that was just preliminary. I think it always went deeper to see, like you said in your intro, the whole child. And I think we have a unique opportunity to do that in education.
Amazing. I love that it was clear for you from a young age, from high school, and you have proof of it.
Yeah, exactly. Stamped.
Yeah. So, Marcos, why did you decide to dive into this crazy world?
I think my experience is a little bit different, but I do share in that I always had an interest and perhaps a need in helping others. So from a young age, I wanted to be a firefighter. I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to be a paramedic. I wanted to be a physiotherapist. And so the common theme was always I always wanted to do something where I would be able to help others thrive or succeed or get them, moving them along in their journey. Or although when I was 12, I didn't really understand the concept of journey, perhaps, right? But I think looking back, the common theme was like, I want to help people, right? And then the teaching thing happened very organically. So I was coaching. I was coaching and doing and working at summer camps,
Oh,
and it kind of like had this kind of epiphany where I recognized that must have been like 22 or 23. So unlike Luana, when she was grade 9, she already knew she wanted to be a teacher. For me, it was like, oh wow. And I had to do a massive shift in my studies to ensure that I could apply to teachers college, right? So for me, it was that. It was just working with little kids in soccer camp and coaching soccer that it just made me recognize that that was my calling.
amazing. That's
Yeah,
so
that's
great.
really, yeah, that's really great. And you know what, I have to say that I've seen you guys both in action and you're incredible. And I think one of the things that really I felt very attracted to the both of you is because of your depth and understanding of your own selves, right? So self-awareness is a really big part of emotional intelligence. And so what was your journey alongside, one another and maybe even independently in developing some of that emotional intelligence?
I think it's a partially innate. I think it's part of just having an understanding of the people around you. I've always had, I speak for myself. I know Marcos is the same, but I'll let him speak for himself. But I've always had a very deep connection to people and the relationship people have, not only with me, but with each other and the way they interact with one another. So I've been acutely aware of people's behaviors, not just with my students, but even as a young person, there are probably many reasons for that. And some of it include some like minor trauma, maybe even when I was a kid, as why I have to be acutely aware of people's behavior and reactions to things. So I think that that's partially where it came from. And then coupled with the need to want to help people, I feel like if you really understand someone on that level, as far as their personality, why they may be behaving a certain way, what triggers them, you really get to know people on a level that isn't superficial. And I think as a teacher, as a parent, as a person in any relationship is very important. We touched upon it a little bit in school when it came to learning about how to interact with students, but I think a lot of that was a personal journey and an interest in people. Like I said before, curriculum is important, but for me, it's always been who am I dealing with and why are they the way they are, and how can knowing that help me help them and also help myself. So emotional intelligence is a buzzword, maybe now, but it's been something that's been around in the way that in my pedagogy, but also in my personal life for a very long time.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think some people are just more innately wired to perhaps display those um, characteristics, right?
Yeah.
So, that's just part of it. It could be a personality thing, but then you also have people that model that behavior for you, right?
Mhm.
So it has to also be polished, or it has to be enhanced, or it has to be developed one way or another, right? And then, like when I said, people that come along, right? Like for me, I know my parents model that behavior for me in terms of respecting and taking care of others, whoever needs you, right? And then uh, friends and circles of people around us, who you marry, will have a massive impact on whether or not you develop those qualities or not. And I happen to marry somebody who is a massive empath. So
If I make it through this podcast without crying, that's a huge thing.
Hey, we
so
love
for me,
empaths.
so I'm in a permanent environment where also I'm allowed and have permission to express that emotional intelligence, if you will, or that empathy, right? And like it's not when you've been around kids a long time, right? It is way beyond the curriculum, right? So you're nurturing human beings, right, who have um, an endless amount of different experiences, right? Negative, positive experiences. So you have to be equipped to recognize what those experiences might be, perhaps not in detail, but what the effects of those experiences could be, and therefore um, act accordingly to nurture and support each child, right? So the curriculum, uh, today's day and age with YouTube and AI, you can learn the curriculum in so many different ways, right?
Yep.
So the role of the teacher goes beyond the curriculum. Yeah, it helps if you can find creative ways of presenting curriculum in a differentiated manner, let's say, right, so that everybody understands it. But it's in today's age, you can get curriculum anywhere, right?
Mhm. I agree. I agree. I mean, both my kids think, why do I got to go to school? I can learn everything online. Like, let's not go there. Your job is to go to school. So, but it's true that like I would never, that wouldn't even have crossed my mind at their age, like to think about like I can learn this outside of school.
Yeah.
You know, if I didn't go to school, I knew I wouldn't learn anything. So yeah, it's
Curriculum.
definitely a change.
So the curriculum is essentially a placeholder.
Yeah.
It's the excuse to go to school, but then the lessons are beyond the curriculum.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because how much of the curriculum that you learned in high school do you still remember today, or elementary school for that matter, or even
Yeah.
university for that matter?
Yeah.
But you learned how to learn, which is an important thing, and you also learned how to cooperate and collaborate and take care of other people and ask for help and thrive and right and face adversity. So the curriculum is just the excuse, I think.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and education is ever evolving, right? Because where before, maybe when we went to school or before us, it was about like you need to learn this and you need to know this, and science was important for this reason, or whatever subject, insert any subject there. But education is also evolving because people's needs are evolving and things are coming to the forefront that maybe we really didn't look at before because we went to school to learn this curriculum, point, and period. And then now we're kind of zooming out that lens, and I think it's important.
100%.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things that you said, Luana, was that emotional intelligence is kind of a buzzword, and you're right. It's like wellness or mindfulness, right? It's just being thrown around. But what I do love about the emotional intelligence part is now we're able to categorize it and find bits and pieces of it, and also find those bits and pieces of it in our students, right? And the ability for these students to be able to develop and to focus on maybe parts of it that they feel that they might not be so strong in. Like, for example, we know that everybody's glued to their phones and to their computers. So understanding that they may be really empathic, but they have to start working on their people skills, because we know how important that is. I mean, just in your jobs alone, we know how important people skills are. So just knowing that, hey, I've got 3 parts of this down. How do I manage the 4th, or how can I build on the 4th? And so I love what you guys are talking about. And you're right, curriculum is that placeholder. And we are bringing our kids to school now to learn all of these other life skills that are important for them to thrive in, this ever evolving world. So I'm curious to know, obviously being in guidance right now, Luana, what are some of the other challenges that you are facing? So I understand they're coming to you for, course changes and, all that good stuff, but what are some of the other things that you're dealing with right now in the office?
Do we have 45 hours? But
Condense.
I think I can tell you a list of things, of issues, but in my opinion, if we zoom out, they all stem from the same 2 or 3 things. So one is that if they're coming with academic concerns, it could be because they have, say, a learning disability, or they have attention deficit and we have disorder, and we have to, be sure to be giving them what they need for their specific needs. So there's that kind of academic need. Then there's academic need because they're not actually working to their potential, because they are distracted, because they have other things going on, because they have issues that are social, emotional, stemming from home, or even happening at school. And then social media is also in that kind of a basket, or a cornucopia of stuff that they're dealing with, right? So, but that cornucopia of stuff, if we want to use that metaphor, always comes back down to one of 3 things. And the most important thing is that learning anything, whether it's, a tough subject for you, if let's say writing is a hard subject for you, or learning how to be a team member on a basketball team, how well you learn and what you get out of what is being taught has everything to do with your sense of self, emotional stability, and the support system that you have around you. Because if those things are in check, you will learn to your potential. We all have different degrees of intelligence, right? And we can measure intelligence and IQ. So that may be a limitation or maybe a forte for you, but that's not what's going to make or break your experience. And I'm finding kids that are coming in with issues have these issues because there is something behind them. So if we look at it, any given child who doesn't have a particular disability, let's say, they're coming in with the potential to learn academically. They're coming in with having, gotten the curriculum and passed, let's say, grade 8 if they're a grade 9 student, and they're struggling. It usually has to do with the support system. Something's not right with their support system at home. Their involvement in or isolation because they are distracted by social media and whatever it is that's taking up their time. So they're not putting their time into, progressing academically, or they are involved in something social that's a problem, like, I don't know, bullying or elsewhere. But it's because they don't have the tools to deal with those stressors. And the bigger problem is their parents don't have the tools to deal with those stressors because they were never taught those tools. They're not applying those tools. And we are living in a world, like most generations, where we don't know what our kids are going through because we didn't live like that.
Yeah.
So they're coming with issues because they don't know how to solve them, and the support system around them don't necessarily know how to solve them either.
Wow.
So it doesn't matter what the issue is. I think when you zoom out, a lot of times that's the root of the issue.
Yeah. And would you say it's like been like since 2020, has it gotten worse?
I mean, I think it existed before, definitely. And maybe yes, because we got into a situation where students, and going back to my role as a guidance counselor, where students are now having to be okay with, like you said about your kids, I could just learn this at home because they were given the opportunity that didn't exist before.
Because
That
they
wasn't
learned it at home. Yeah.
learned it at home. And then again, they're not realizing what they're not getting by being at home, because again, we're focusing in on solely the content that you are getting out of any given curriculum. And that's not the big part that's missing when you're at home.
And you talked about social media, how, yeah, like they think they're being social by being on social media, where it's quite the opposite, as we all know. And I'm actually curious about how both of you feel about, there's some heavy regulations going down in our southern country around social media. And just out of curiosity, how do you feel about banning kind of social media before the age of 14, or was it 15? I can't remember what age it was that they were doing.
I supported 100%.
Yeah, tell
Social
me
media,
more.
social media topic is always tricky, right? It's almost like a necessity, but at the same time, it could be very harming.
Yeah.
Like you see kids are sitting together, and like 6 kids sitting together, and they're on their phones and not even talking to each other
Right.
at lunchtime. Right? Today, one of the coolest things I saw today was I had a very rowdy table in the cafeteria. I had lunch duty. It made me so happy to see them so excited, energized, and so rowdy because they were playing Uno. So they're about 6, 7, 8. I can't remember. Senior students at grade 11 and 12, and they're just having a blast. And I look over, and what are they doing? They're playing Uno. And it made me so happy to see that, right? Now, it's very difficult to generalize.
I
So, like
know.
a lot of questions, I find that people that are not in education are always asking questions like, how have things changed? Or what is it about your classes? Or what do you see? What do you not see? And the reality is you can't generalize, because you have students who have more needs than ever, and that's the reality, right?
Mhm.
And that may have been exacerbated by the pandemic and all the trauma that they experienced. But then you have students who are more focused than ever, and it doesn't matter what the environment may be. They just have very good self-regulation, and they're ambitious, and they're detailed oriented, and it doesn't matter who's at the front of the classroom. So it's difficult to say all students are behaving in this manner. Everyone is experiencing the same type of problems, right? Luana brings up a very good point that the home is the most important part of the equation, the pyramid, if you want to call it the pyramid, right? The school, the home, and the student, right? Because there's only so much that can be done in a limited amount of time that we have at school. And then again, it's difficult to like deduce something, because there are so many different variables, right? For example, maybe 10 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, you had 8 fewer students in your class. So as a proportion of that class, maybe you had the same amount of kids who really needed your support and your attention. Now, perhaps you have 8 in some classes, right? You might have 5 to 8 more students. So it may seem like there are a lot more issues, but proportionally, perhaps it's not. It might be similar. So it's very difficult to quantify something like changes and challenges and issues that students might be experiencing, right?
I think, sorry to cut you off. I just wanted to say 2 things about social media and back to the original question, because I do agree with everything Marcos is saying. But additionally, when you are looking at something like social media, I would equate it to, let's go back to 1985. In and around that time, you wouldn't give a pack of cigarettes to an 8-year-old. And I feel like with social media, that's what we're doing. So it's and cigarettes, we know now the effects, and maybe they didn't know in 85, but they still in 85, because I was a child in 85 in that time. And you knew that smoking was not great, but you knew that it was something that adults did that wasn't great for adults, but they did it anyway because it was a social thing. And whatever the things, I was a kid. But just to say, I think that is how detrimental giving social media to a young child is. So yes, I agree wholeheartedly that that could be something that we should really look at seriously. But I think coupled with that or married to that should be the fact that I will never forget. I saw something on social media with oh,
It
his
does
name
have
escapes.
some benefits.
Yeah, exactly. There are, and that's just the thing. So this is where this part is. That's what I'm trying to say. Social media itself is not the culprit.
Yeah.
It's a reality in our world.
Yeah.
Should we ban it for kids? Yes, because their brain is developing still. They are still, we didn't get social media in formative years. So that's one problem. The second thing is when a parent had asked, I can't remember if he was a psychologist, but they were talking about this, and she went up to him. It was like question answer time at the end, and she went up to him and said, what can I do to help my kid? She's 16 or whatever, and she wants social media. Do I take it away from them? Give me the answer. What can I do? And he stopped and he said, the single most important thing you can do is help her have a positive self-esteem.
Yes.
Because the reality is social media is not going away. And this is going back to what I was saying before. When you have the tools, when you know the tools, when you build your character and persona, which a lot of adults don't have, and they're raising children not knowing, so how can they pass that on? And I feel like that's where the kind of disconnect is. Because social media, yes, it has its faults. 100%. Kids under a certain age should not be exposed to that. They are not ready for it. But adults too don't know how to deal with it. And that's why it all comes back down to being able to recognize where the growth needs to be and where the education needs to be to get the tools to deal with things like that.
And that's a really good point, because as an adult, like you were saying before about not being your formative years, so you might not have the tools or the coping mechanisms to deal with anything negative on social media, but you're further along on your journey of development, and the potential impacts should be less than a 12-year-old child or a 16-year-old child or whatever it may be, right? So
And you can differentiate between, the real and the fake to an extent, right? But yeah, you can differentiate.
There's a little bit more discernment, right? In that capacity.
And sorry, Shar, you might be seeking different things as an adult than a child.
Mm-hmm.
So you may be seeking ideas or creative ways of doing X, right? Activities with the family, or
cooking,
arts and craft, cooking, right? A recipe, something. So you're also seeking a different type of information, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure most kids are not looking for the things that most adults are looking for, right?
Yeah, they're looking for a sense of self. They're looking for a way to figure themselves out. And yeah, that's the danger of social media, is when they don't have that sense of self, automatically what happens is social media starts grooming them, in developing a sense of self, not necessarily a healthy way either. So then it always begs the question, obviously at school, we're very focused on students, we're focused not only on their academics, but their mental health as well. Like, how do we bridge the gap? Like, how do we help parents help their kids? Right? Because they're also underdeveloped, right? Parents are also underdeveloped. And like I said, I feel very fortunate because of the path that I've fallen on, Andrea, and the both of you, where self-development and that part of understanding who we are, building that self-confidence, that self-esteem was a big part of our journey. But for our parents that aren't there yet, like, how do we support them? Like, how do we help them help their kid?
Yeah. Well, these are good conversations to have.
Yeah, exactly.
Conversations and educating ourselves and continuing to look for information information, valid information, right? I think that helps, but also that comes from within. So the need, the parent needs to feel the need to continue educating themselves and to continue equipping themselves so that they can equip their child. Because these things, technology and social media and algorithms and AI, it's moving at such a rapid pace that it's impossible for us to keep up. There's just no way for us to be fully educated on the impacts of everything when we don't really know what the impacts are fully. And there's these technologies are so complex that we can't possibly carry an engineering degree and a psychology degree and a social worker degree, right? We just simply can't. So I think it's a good idea to have these conversations and for people to recognize that they're not alone and that their child is not the only child that is suffering potential negative effects of either too much screen time, video game addiction, gambling addiction, social media addiction. So they're not alone, and there are so many people out there that are dealing with the same issues, right?
And I think it's been, just to piggyback off what he's saying, I think we've had this conversation before with the two of you. We believe that we have to start with the parents. The parents need to, I don't know if it's information nights. We've tried having parent engagement evenings at our school or sending out information. We have the wellness club at our school where we put, on Instagram and in our social medias and through emails, just giving them that kind of information, because I can't tell you how many times I get off the phone with a parent and then I say to myself, well, I'm not surprised that Johnny has this concern or this issue. And sometimes it's not their fault. Sometimes they are aggressive and bullies themselves. And I know bullying is a strong word, but they can come across as aggressive. And a lot of that is coming from an inability to get a hold of their child or to help their child. They feel at a loss. How can I help my child? Because most parents come in with one concern: I care about and I want to advocate for my child. How they go about to do that and the example of behavior that they show their kids, they're not seeing that part. They're just, I want to bulldoze through so that I can help my child, and that's not always the most effective way. So I think education and just talking about it and making this more mainstream, and not just buzzwords, but things that we actually incorporate and make it a conversation that's okay to talk about. Because I bet you parents who have kids who are on social media and that they're concerned about, half of them will say to you, or more than half will say to you, but I can't not give it to my kid because then she or he's going to be left out. And and then they talk to the other parents, and then the other parents will be like, well, I can't. But we're not having the conversations with each other. They're just letting their kids do things, or we just let our kids do things because other kids are doing those things, but yet the parents don't want that either. So the more we talk about it, maybe the more likely things can change, because nothing changes if nothing changes.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think with these parent engagement nights, you're right. Like the school's making the effort. We need to get our parents involved. We need to let them know what's happening. We need to help them get the support, because some of them are lost. And at the end of the day, they say you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink. So, not unless people show up, there's nothing that we can really do for them. And I think you're right. Where we start is with the people and with the parents that are willing, that are open to coming to these events, that are open to having the discussion, and to figuring out what elements they may need to change in their own life to better help and support their own kids. I mean, we've done parent engagement nights before, and, they're amazing opportunities for parents to also see that they're not an island, that you're not going through this alone. Your neighbor down the street is going through exactly the same thing. And everybody in this room has a very similar concern to what it is that you have. And I think that's what it is. It's let's help the people that are wanting to be helped, that are willing to come and show up and be vulnerable and share. And then, it's the ripple effect from there. right?
Absolutely.
What we can do for you because you showed up at our door is going to have an impact. And whether you think it's going to be this big or this big, it's definitely going to have an impact. So I feel like that's where we start.
Yeah, we're all waves in the ocean, right? We don't need to take on the whole ocean. Just a little, we can affect the community around us, and then that can move forward from there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm interested to know, do you find there's more children being diagnosed with ADHD? Because I know you mentioned ADHD before. Do you feel the diagnoses have gone up? And I know that doesn't necessarily mean, it's because of social media, it's because of our, modern lifestyle, because I'm sure there were a lot of us suffering from it and
I think
weren't being diagnosed. Like nobody was actively going out there. Would you agree?
I think it's exactly what you said. I think it's a mixture of both. It's very hard. I don't have data to support what I'm about to say, but I think I can tell you personally, my brother was undiagnosed till he was an adult.
Yeah.
Literally in his late 30s.
I've heard that a lot lately. Yeah.
Right. And could it have been later onset? Could it have been missed as a child? Could it have, could be either one of those things. So, and is it being overdiagnosed? Maybe. I can't really say either way, but there is definitely a correlation between the kids, their students nowadays being less able to sit through one thing when everything is instant gratification and you're just swiping and swiping and swiping and you're seeing the next thing. So is there a connection? If I had to take an educated guess, I would say yes.
I would think so too.
Right.
I would think there's no boredom. There's absolutely no boredom whatsoever. Right. There's no sitting still. There's a lack of mindfulness.
Yeah.
And adults do it as well.
Oh,
right?
for sure.
So habitually we pull out our phones and we look up something that is probably meaningless, right? Whether or not Matthew scored his 60th goal, right? Or not. So
it's instant.
Scheme of things, right? So imagine we're doing it. So imagine kids who are a lot more embedded in it and have much more of that instant gratification that we experience. I'm not on social media, but I can still find myself habitually picking up my phone to read a sports story, which then I catch myself saying, well, I didn't really need to read it. And I'm not even sure how much of it I grasp because I did it kind of habitually.
Yeah.
So it must be a lot more challenging for a child who is constantly releasing that dopamine.
Mm-hmm.
The phone. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree. Like sometimes I'll pick up my phone and I'm like, why did I pick up my phone again? Like, it's like, I don't even know why I was going to it. It's such a habit. And you're right. It takes a conscious effort on all of our parts to put it down or to know when, I've had enough. But it's even the distraction of it. So it's funny. I saw again something on social media that showed like a chart in a classroom, and a teacher did this with their classroom. And every time they had headings, texts, social media alert, actually it was Instagram alert, Snapchat alert, Facebook alert, phone call, and then other notification, like app notifications. And every time one of the kids' like phones went off in one of those, they put a tally mark. Needless to say, the entire page was full. And it was sort of an experiment in understanding the amount of distraction that we receive. And so it's almost this counterintuitive, like you're asking them to stay focused on a lesson, but then their phone's buzzing, which is, again, another discussion we can have around even allowing phones in the classroom, which I believe they should be like in a locked box, not even available. And until parents all agree on that, like Luana, you're saying, like we all want it, but then we listen to the kids, oh, but everybody has it, out, and, I need it for, my homework. And it's like, no, you don't. Like, you have a Chromebook, use that for your whatever assignment. But until the parents all come together and realize your child does not need to, you don't need to get a hold of your child in class. There's an emergency, you call the school. So anyway, I can go on about that, but feel free to add.
So now try to learn when you're constantly changing where your attention's going. You're turning it on, you're turning it off, you're turning it on, you're turning it off.
Yes.
The irony is when a child pulls out their phone in class and they're texting away and it's their parent that they're talking to.
Yeah.
So then the parents get upset that the kids are using the phone in the class, but they're also
Contributing.
the reason why they're on the phone.
They're in, I know.
Class,
And you know what? I'll check myself. Like if I was like, oh, I forgot to ask, Isabella something, and I will pick up my phone, but I'll be like, oh no, she's in class. Unless she's on her lunch, I will not text her. But it's true. It's like we instantly go to that. Oh, let me just ask them and get my answer right away, because I'll forget later because I'm so freaking distracted.
And then the thing is, two things can be true at the same time. The need to have a phone. I think if we go extreme, we're going to lose a lot of kids. So
Yeah.
if we do what you said and put the box, I would love that. In an ideal world, I would love to have a magic box where everybody puts their phone in there. But sometimes I feel, especially, this is a reality for them and for our world. We have our phones. My phone is with me all day, on my desk, in my classroom, and I have to learn to know when it's appropriate and when it's not appropriate. But these are also things we can be teaching them. For example, when they're in class and I'm teaching, I have them have their phones on their desk with the screen face down so they can't see, and it has to be on silent, so that they're addicted. You can't, it's like taking away something that any addiction, taking it away and going through that withdrawal phase where they're not concentrating. So it's almost like they need steps to get there, and tools, just like we need tools for everything else. I don't know that that's the best solution necessarily, but I can tell you that they hated it at first, but then they know. And then when it was time to, if I give them class time to do some, work, and I'm watching them do their work and they have their headphones, and some of them like to listen to music, I put calming music on in my classroom, and I dim the lights when it's time to do classwork, so that the environment is set up for them to actually be productive and have, but that might not be everybody's style, and someone in the class might not love that. But what I'm saying is you have to have different tools available to them so that they know, oh, I can do this. Or maybe I don't, I wasn't so bad. I lasted half an hour with my phone away from me, So these are little things that, again, we can do in the classroom, but they need to be doing them at home. They need to have, this needs to be supported.
Yeah.
By the community that supports them.
You got it. 100%. You're so right. It's interesting. So we were at a school last week or the week before, and there was a student, we were doing a presentation. There was a student fully with his laptop open, fully working, like just working. And I went up to the teacher that was supervising, and I said, is it okay if I tell him to turn off his laptop? And she's like, oh no, he does that. Like, don't worry, he's fully listening. And I'm thinking, wow, okay. She's like, no, that's just what he does. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, cool. It's a little distracting for us, but I'll let it go. Like, if you're telling me, we're guests there, we don't want to be the big bad wolves. So I didn't say anything. And I'll be honest, he was engaged. He did answer some questions. I was surprised because Shar was doing most of this presentation, and I had to kind of go up to her because Shar will be the one to be like, excuse me, can you put everything away? So she'll tell them all. She's like, turn everything off. I don't want to see, not mean. Like she can't be mean.
We know.
But, so I knew like it was, I know. So I knew she was probably thinking it. So I kind of went up and said, by the way, apparently he's cool. He can he can be working away. And so he was surprisingly engaged. But I agree, Marcos, like it does seem impossible to be able to multitask, or have our children just now been designed to multitask in this way.
I don't know. And everything is very nuanced depending on the child. Maybe there is something there that we don't know about. They're not going to give you the rundown of his needs.
Right.
But,
exactly.
So,
like,
don't know.
I know. Yeah. Because I know there's a lot of different learning styles. And that's why I asked the teacher first before I kind of like shut him down, because like, yeah, we just don't know what accommodations, different students are given during that lessons. But yeah, that was a shocker for me. I was like, okay.
I know.
Okay, so we're almost coming to the end of our time together. So we want to wrap up with asking you both about, and I think we got into this, but kind of like, what can a school do? Like just in general, I know there's bringing in, support and whatnot, but what would you like to see in an ideal world? And this could be coming from the top, like high level superintendent stuff, or ministry stuff, or just close by in your own school, in your own community. Like what can be done? What would be sort of your beautiful, like, wish list, if you could have it, just to improve and get some of this support going more and more?
How much time do we have?
I know, exactly. Let me roll it.
Starting with that question.
I know.
You know what? I think there are a lot of changes taking place. So it's been also expedited since the pandemic, right? Before that, it was, for example, I can speak to 15 years ago trying to do meditation or just breathing awareness in class, and it wasn't very well received. I remember trying to implement some sports psychology ideas in coaching even 18, 20 years ago. And that also wasn't very well received. And then if you fast forward to today, or even just even back to 2020, these are practices that are well more received. It's almost like commonplace. There's not a whole lot of resistance.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, I'm going to teach you how to do diaphragmatic breathing, or we're going to work on a little ratio breathing, or perhaps some box breathing. And there have definitely been changes that have allowed that to be a little more acceptable, right? Perhaps a mom, dad, guardian are doing that at home. Perhaps they're doing it on their own. I remember doing yoga with my classes, again, pre-pandemic, and it wasn't as well received as, for example, today, because perhaps when students see their parents or guardians practicing that more often, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there are changes that are taking place, and this is obviously an evolution, and it's, again, part of our collective journey. And I would love to see the ministry in their next curriculum updates to implement a lot more of the mindfulness and the mental wellness practices into the various curricula, right? So in phys ed, it's very easy to introduce it, right? Could it be introduced in every other class? Perhaps some classes it's a little bit easier than others, but it's possible. Yeah. Even from a very young age. Let's go down all the way to JK. So if we start earlier, it'll be a lot better. So it'll be more commonplace. And also teacher education. Yeah. Because it's difficult to, so you have two teachers that are very comfortable leading a meditation or some imagery or breathing, right? Or yoga. But that's because of our own personal experiences that have put us in this situation. You can't ask teacher X to now get comfortable leading a meditation if they've never done it before, and they've never had any training. And that's, I think, one of the, I don't know if it's errors, that the assumption when all these resources were coming out, there was almost this assumption that because teachers are very adaptable, teachers clearly care about students, and they're very nurturing, and they'll do anything, right? Teachers will usually do more with less. That's the type of people that teachers are in general. And I think there was an error in the assuming that, hey, we're going to give you all these resources, now you have to implement them in the classroom. On top of all the curriculum that you have to implement, on top of all the support that you have to provide for each student, which, by the way, you have more than you used to have before. So it was like added to the already pile of responsibilities, duties, work that a teacher has to do. And it was just assumed that, hey, every teacher can, why not, right? Lead a breathing exercise. And not taking into account not only the comfort level of the teacher, their views on whether or not mindfulness is important or if it works or not, and also their own experiences, perhaps their previous trauma that keeps them from really opening up or leading something like that. As you both know, a lot of these practices require there to be a really positive, healthy energy, right? So I think it was an error to kind of just look at it as, okay, it's just an activity and here you go.
Yeah.
And then teachers will just implement it in every period and they'll fix the problem, right? So it needs to come from the top, I think, right? And it has to be more embedded in at every step of the way for children, and teachers require proper training for them to be able to support their students.
Yeah, I know. I think you hit the nail on the head. I know, absolutely. I think the teachers need the training first and foremost. Do you agree, Luana?
Yeah, 100%. And I don't know if it's, yes, it's training, but again, this goes back to the fact that you can't, it's very hard to deny the effects of, let's say, something like box breathing. It's scientifically proven if you do that, you're going to calm your brain down. But this, again, because these are buzzwords and wellness, some people are actually turned away and turned off by it, but also they haven't put this into practice in their life. And again, you can't expect people to all, to everybody to kind of jump on board with the same type of practices. But the reality is, just like there are guidelines to keep you healthy, fit, to keep you physically healthy, there are guidelines to keep you mentally healthy. And
that's true.
It's only been a few years where this has been mainstream, because like Marco said, even I in 2005, no, earlier in 2001, I had a grade 8 class and I sat down and did like in a breath, like we were sitting on the floor in my grade 8 classroom with my kids, and we closed our eyes, we did breath work and a mindfulness quasi meditation with gratitude incorporated. And that was just something that I was doing and I knew was beneficial, and they really took to it, and the parents were very appreciative. But that was just something I decided to do, and it did benefit them. I have those students still coming to me telling me about how that was a great experience, but that's because I was comfortable with that and I was doing that. So you don't have to do that per se, but there needs to be a wider understanding by society in general, not just teachers, everyone, to understand that your wellness and mental health is connected to your physical health. And there are things that you should be doing for yourself. So then when you're practicing those things, that's the best way to teach kids, is to watch you do those things. It doesn't have to be yoga. It doesn't have to be fill in the blank with whatever you want.
Yeah.
It has to be something, they emulate you the same when it comes to the way you eat, the way you sleep. Like we can talk about sleep alone for hours and how important it is, and how many of these kids are staying up at night on video games or on social media or talking to each other, where we used to maybe do that once in a blue moon on the rotary, or not on the rotary, but on the phone.
Yeah, the rotary.
Yeah, exactly right.
If you had a phone in your room.
If you were lucky to, but then your parent can pick up the other phone, and so it's a very different world. But what I'm saying is there's something to be said about quality of sleep, that's a hygiene thing. It's for your health, that people don't know about. So again, this has to be a wider scope. It needs to be in corporations. It needs to be on the news. It needs to be mainstream understanding, right?
And I think, sorry, Len, finish up.
No, I'm good. Go ahead.
No, I totally agree with you. And you know what? You said it so perfectly. Like, you're right. People exercise because they understand the physiological benefits that their body undergoes when they are exercising. actually that was the whole premise of the empowerment project, right? Like every time we teach students about breathing or gratitude or meditation or visualization, whatever it is, we're always bringing brain science into it. And I think you're right. Like not all the teachers are going to be on the same ends of the spectrum, right? Because science and spirituality or science and, these woo-woo practices, that's a pretty big spectrum. But if you're able to reach them from a scientific point, when they understand that this is what's happening to the brain when you engage your students in this form of practice, that's when they're more likely to participate. And even for them, like if they're not big believers in meditation or whatever it is, but they can understand that it can calm a classroom down, that it can help everyone feel collectively more feel calmer, more relaxed. Why would you not engage in those practices, right? I mean, listen, if there are basketball coaches, and we all know who Phil Jackson is, he used to coach the Bulls, and guess what he used to do in the locker room with the athletes? He would take them through guided breathing and meditations. He actually was a practicing Buddhist, but he brought those practices in the locker room, which showed up on the court. So, right. So this is the whole thing. And yeah, teachers, if they're not willing to learn it through, let's say, a spiritual element, let's bring it to them on a scientific level. Say, hey, let's talk brain science here. Let's talk neuroscience.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah, for sure. So many great things we can discuss for hours and hours, but thank you so much, the both of you, for sharing this time with us, your insights. You really have like a finger on the pulse of what's happening in the schools. And listen, the school is the extension of the home now, so it's comforting honestly to know that there's amazing educators like yourselves that are supporting our kids out there. And listen, I think it does come down to we're not going to help everybody. And I know you know that. And it's just taking those little steps. And like you said, I loved that. Just taking those little steps to help who we can, change the minds of who we can. And we will see change. We've already started to see it, which is beautiful. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. We will see you soon.
Yes, looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Luana.